Okay, well, it's now just December 1st where I'm recording, and just in about the last 20 minutes, they've announced that former US President George H.W. Bush has died at age 94. So the actual date of his death will probably be November 30th. Looking at the details here, but they've just announced this in the last 20 minutes, saying George H.W. Bush, whose U.S. presidency soared with coalition victory, but then plummeted in throes of a weak economy that led voters to turn him out of office after a single term, has died. He was 94 years old. I'm going to look at some of your reactions. I imagine a lot of the audience is probably has a lot of issues with George H.W. Bush, but I'm expecting the mainstream media is going to be running a lot of feel-good stories about former President Bush in the coming days. I'm expecting we're going to see a lot of that, and definitely a different reaction in the independent and alternative media. Some people saying perhaps now that he is beyond earthly justice, the remaining JFK murder files can be declassified. Somebody else saying similarly, I also hoped before this happened he would have spilled the beans on JFK. Obviously, George H.W. Bush's connection back to the CIA. A lot of people point to him as a key. He is one of the most central deep state figures. So the mainstream media, this is what they're saying. Son of a senator and father of president, Bush was the man with the golden resume who rose through the political ranks from congressman to UN ambassador, Republican Party chairman to envoy to China, CIA director to two-term vice president under the hugely popular Ronald Reagan. 1991 Gulf War stoked his popularity, but Bush would acknowledge that he had trouble articulating the vision thing. He said he was haunted by his decision to break a stern, solemn vow he made to voters. His famous quote, "Read my lips, no new taxes." He lost his bid for re-election to Bill Clinton in a campaign in which businessman Ross Perot took almost 19% of the vote as an independent candidate. Still, he lived to see his son, George W. Bush, twice elected to the presidency, only the second father and son chief executives following John Adams and John Quincy Adams. After his 1992 defeat, Bush complained that media created myths, gave voters a mistaken impression that he did not identify with the lives of ordinary Americans. He decided he lost because he, quote, just wasn't a good enough communicator. Once out of office, Bush was content to remain on the sidelines except for occasional speech or paid appearance, visits abroad. He backed Clinton on the North American Free Trade Agreement. He backed Clinton on NAFTA, had its own genesis, which NAFTA began during the George H.W. Bush presidency, didn't come into effect until Clinton, but that was also backed by Bush. One of several unpopular policies that you can trace back its origins to the Bush presidency. Getting a couple, I think, sarcastic comments likely in response here in my own comments, just looking at some of your comments, what you were saying. One of the worst presidents, crooked as the day is long, of one commenter here. Just going around looking at some of the reactions. I'll go back to your comments again in the live chat in a minute. Just want to look at some of the reactions in real time here. Other people bringing up NAFTA, again, among the unpopular policies that you can trace back to George H.W. Bush, and still even having an effect after he left office, helping Clinton, who was supposed to be one of his opponents, but he still supported Clinton on NAFTA. A deep state globalist shill who pushed through NAFTA. as his final FU to America's working classes, but at least he wasn't as terrible a president as his son, George W. Bush, CIA dog. And is this the day after NAFTA had actually officially been repealed? Was that just yesterday? Somebody saying loses election because of NAFTA, dies the day after NAFTA is repealed. It's, I guess, ironic as well. Obviously, very different reactions when you're looking at alt media, some of the independent, unmoderated pages as well. I'm sure if you're looking in the regular politics section on the heavily moderated politics page, it gets a different reaction there. And the mainstream media, I'm sure, is going to use this as an opportunity to cement their narrative of what they want the public to think about George H.W. Bush. Prepare for incoming feel-good news stories for the next 4 days. Somebody else saying. Let's look at a couple of your comments again. I don't know how to feel about this, somebody saying. Somebody else saying that it's good news. Imagine the hidden files in his house. One of my commenters saying. One of the New World Order guys finally gone. Somebody saying it's convenient that he dies now. I don't know what news stories George W. Bush has really been involved in the. I mean, very recently. Couple of things that have happened. His heart doctor. I mean, I did talk about George H.W. Bush's heart doctor died in a kind of a strange accident. Heart doctor. Covered this in a couple of previous videos, but just kind of on the fly here, we can take another look. George, we're going to get more results on his death, obviously, recently when searching for George H.W. But this is an article. This was one of the recent ones I talked about. Dr. Mark Houseknecht was one of the heart doctors for George H.W. Bush. Here he is pictured with the former president, and he died in a bicycle shooting. And the media or the authorities had claimed that this had to do. They found a suspect who also died. The circumstances of his death were strange as well. The suspect who killed this heart doctor while riding a bike, the killer was also riding a bike. He followed the doctor. They were both riding bikes. The man shot the doctor, and then they had closed in on the suspect. They said that the suspect was wearing a bulletproof vest, and he committed suicide, they said. The man who killed George H.W. Bush's heart doctor, they said that he took his own life while wearing a bulletproof vest before a possible standoff with police. So I guess conveniently, I guess that would tie up the loose end of the murder of this doctor. The so-called killer also took his own life, is the official story. They said that this was all over a decades-old feud, something like 20 years before this doctor had been involved. They said this doctor had operated on the man's mother, the man who they claimed murdered him. So just very odd. This was a high-profile doctor, worked with George H.W. Bush, He dies in this strange bicycling incident. They give the footage. The man's wearing a military backpack, and they said that it looked like he had some kind of training as well. Now they said that it was over this decades-old feud. That's what authorities were officially saying, but the suspect conveniently, they said, took his own life. So that was something that had just recently happened the last couple of months, just this summer. People were wondering if there was anything more to that, if this doctor, could have known anything about George H.W. Bush, about the former president. I'm not sure what else there could be recently regarding George Bush. Your comments again. Will they blame Putin? Are they going to blame Russia? Somebody saying, I think that's a joke, but I guess I'm not sure what to expect, honestly, with the mainstream media. Sure, this was just a coincidence. Just talking about I was breaking down the situation with a doctor over the summer, his former doctor. That was kind of odd that had happened recently. A few people saying they think that this is good news. People trying to take a guess on who might be next as far as these deep state figures. Timing wise, another interesting thing is, yes, it does come right after John McCain, very, very recent death as well. These are some of the top people when you think establishment, sort of deep state politicians, especially George W. Bush, his central role at the CIA. He's definitely near the top of that hierarchy. JFK. There's been some talk about more disclosure about that recently. I guess that's another interesting thing. Yes, timing wise, they are getting rid of their leaders. Somebody suggesting in my chat. Having a few names of guesses for people that might be next. I'm going to go back and forth. I think they're making predictions here as well on this forum. I'm just looking at the politics forum on 4chan here, looking at a couple of different places. We can check out this Reddit. Most of the main politics forums on Reddit, I imagine, are going to be way too heavily moderated to even be worth looking at. This one is Conspiracy Reddit is still sometimes worth checking out. The most newest responses here. Obviously, keeping an eye as well on Donald Trump's Twitter. President Trump, I don't think has tweeted about this. I'm not sure if he'll have a response tonight. I mean, it is nearly 1:00 Eastern time, so the last retweets that President Trump had were about 4 or 5 hours ago. So no response as far as I know officially. See if he's made any other statements elsewhere. I'm imagining he would post on social media. That would be one of the first places. George H.W. Bush. Let's do a search to see if they have any comments from Trump or any other major figures. Does Hillary Clinton have anything to say? Does she still have a Twitter page? I imagine Twitter probably is not going to be banning Hillary Clinton. Here she is. Last tweets from Hillary Clinton are, oddly enough, from a couple of days ago. I don't think she's posted anything in a few days. Okay, the chat's kind of heating up here. Nancy Pelosi, the crypt keeper, Kissinger and Soros. I think people are making bets here. I mean, I won't get too into that. It is odd that it comes right after McCain. I mean, George H.W. Bush, yes, 94 years old. Not sure that it was completely, totally unexpected, but there are a few things, I guess, kind of timing wise that maybe worth bringing up. Weird incident with the that heart doctor. There was some possible JFK disclosure that people had been talking about. The recent death of McCain as well. These are all uh, things that have a possible connection to Bush. Nothing from Clinton, George W. Bush, or Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush's Twitter page. Is he making a? Jeb Bush has not tweeted anything in the last day. There's no response there. So it's kind of another thing I'm keeping an eye on here is who's going to be the first of these big names to make a social media statement or something in response to this. George Soros probably asleep right now, I guess. Last time he's posted is 19 hours ago. They've drawn something here in some recent articles. Take a look. Try to look at the most recent one here, sorted by date. Okay, here they're saying George H.W. Bush dead at 94, tributes to the 41st President of the United States. Bush, who was the country's oldest living ex-president, served a single term in Oval Office from 1989 through 1993. Former U.S. President George Herbert Walker Bush has died. 41st President of the United States died at 10:10 p.m., they're telling us, local time on Friday. So the official date will be November 30th, but I don't think really any outlets Eastern time had talked about it until just after midnight, just about 15-20 minutes before we went live, beginning of this video here. But 10:10, November 30th, is the official time of death. Bush served a single term in the Oval Office. He presided over the end of the Cold War and routed Saddam Hussein's Iraqi army, but lost a chance for a second term after breaking a no new taxes pledge. He's the father of former Republican President George W. Bush and Florida Governor Jeb Bush, who unsuccessfully sought the 2016 Republican nomination for president. Bush's grandson has responded. George P. Bush wrote on Twitter, quote, "He was more than a great man. He was a good man. His courage was matched by his compassion, and his dedication to country was equaled only by his devotion to his family." The recent photo, George H.W. Bush, Clinton's, Obama. Bush's death, they also add, came 7 months after that of his wife, former First Lady Barbara Bush, to whom he was married for 73 years. In April, Bush Sr. was rushed to hospital after being taken ill just hours after his wife's funeral. He was admitted to intensive care in Houston, Texas, after contracting an infection which spread to his blood. Former First Lady died on Tuesday, April 17th at age 92. A couple other photos posted here. George W. Bush and George H.W. Bush arriving at a funeral. We'll be bringing you the very latest, they say. That was among the most recent updates. 1,000 points of light, somebody making that reference in this chat. There's another one of his famous quotes. Kind of a deep state related quote as well. There's a couple different interpretations of that speech, actually. I've done a couple of videos on that one as well. More your comments. Another globalist bites the dust, somebody saying. Going to go back to this forum for a second, just take a look. I'm going to give it a few more minutes at least here and check one more update, at least in the next little bit. Refresh again on Donald Trump's Twitter, see if there's any response from the president. H.W. Bush dead. This is not a drill. See what you're saying here. Oh, the chat might be moving too fast to keep up. Is there a slow mode that I can go into in this? I haven't really used it. I haven't had that issue too often. Let's try to stop it here if I can. Even though someone has already replaced him, it's news like this that gives us hope. It'd just be interesting to see, to contrast some of the comments here that we have in this chat with, let's go to what's one of the most liberal place or establishment kind of mainstream, not sure if liberal is the word, but mainstream source that would be supportive of George H.W. Bush or their readers. It's like to see what some real people, not just it's obvious the mainstream media is going to do a lot of fluff pieces, again, putting into concrete the narrative that they want to make around George H.W. Bush, how they want people to perceive him. But to see people's actual reactions, even people that do follow the mainstream, but not just journalists that are being paid to shill for George H.W. Bush, but actual people's reactions. Let's look. People just kind of giving generic condolences, I expect, but I'm looking to see if somebody saying seems like a pretty good guy. Wondering if there would be that many open supporters from George H.W. Bush. I don't think that he's really, even with the mainstream trying to prop him up, I think he's probably among some of the less popular recent presidents. Former vice president, congressman, director of the CIA, and an ambassador. For all the young people out there, we once had standards for the presidency, so it's obvious. This is NPR, so liberal. I guess this is an establishment sort of liberal source, you could describe it as. That is one interesting thing, is you have a lot of Democrats, and you saw this with McCain, obviously, as well, or people that would criticize Democrats that would have criticized McCain and Bush pretty harshly in the past and said some, really negative, harsh things, pretending that they were great all of a sudden when they wouldn't have supported them before. They tried to rehabilitate their image. We've seen this with George W. Bush as well, George H.W.'s son, maybe even more so, because the establishment still has some more use for George W. Bush and being a little bit younger. if they can save his image, as it seems like they've been trying to be. You see a lot of weird alliances between these Republicans, rhino Republicans, neocons, but openly getting along with these Democrats. One of the most outrageous ones that I saw recently was Michelle Obama calling George W. Bush her partner in crime. Pretty sick. Kind of vomit inducing almost. Michelle Obama says George W. Bush is my partner in crime and I love him to death. So you're seeing that with a lot of these neocons. And I imagine the mainstream media is going to be doing a similar thing with George H.W. Bush, especially in the next couple of days. They're going to take this as an opportunity, I figure. You're seeing some comments mirroring that, trying to use this as another opportunity to take a shot at the current administration. One of the best foreign this is, I mean, this has to be sarcastic almost. This is a real comment, I guess, but somebody's saying one of the best foreign policy presidents ever, and he was denied a second term because Bill Clinton looked good playing the sax, and Ross Perot spoiled. He played the spoiler role. Perot, bless him, he helped end the Cold War and win the Gulf War with minimal casualties. These are NPR readers. You have a couple of commenters here as well saying that it's good news. Again, I think he's probably among some of the least popular recent presidents. More people saying coincidence. Seeing a few more guesses as to who is other people that they think might be coming up. I'm not sure. I guess people will probably be speculating about that as well. Check out Comey's Twitter today. Has he made a comment about this or just in general, or is this to do with the subpoena? I know he's trying to fight this House subpoena, James Comey. Just talking about from today, just the one. This is following up on today. My legal team filed court papers to try to get transparency from House Republicans. Let the American people watch. He's refusing to do this closed door testimony that the House GOP wants him to do. And he's trying to frame it as being, well, he wants the public to see the testimony, but really he's just going to use it as an excuse, because if it's a public, if he's answering these questions in public, there's a 5-minute question period for everyone in the House, and he can just say that things or security issues are confidential or classified, and he can't answer them in a public setting. So the House GOP wants to subpoena him. This has to do with the Clinton investigation. Former FBI Director James Comey. James Comey is using this as a tactic, I think, to not answer a lot of different questions. Is an interesting update as well. I don't know if he's posted anything about the Bush news, though. I don't think so, as far as I know. Let's take one final look at Donald Trump's Twitter, and I will probably call it a night here and maybe do a follow-up tomorrow in more detail. We'll have some more reactions. Here we are. Okay, statement. So let's look at this. Statement from President Donald J. Trump and First Lady Melania Trump on the passing of former President George H.W. Bush. Statement from President Donald J. Trump and Melania Trump. Passing of the former president. December 1st, 2018, Melania and I join with a grieving nation to mourn the loss of former President George H.W. Bush, who passed away last night. Through his essential authenticity, disarming wit, and unwavering commitment to faith, family, and country, President Bush inspired generations of his fellow Americans to public service to be, in his words, a thousand points of light, illuminating the greatness, hope, and opportunity of America to the world. President Bush always found a way to set the bar higher. As a young man, he captained the Yale baseball team and then went on to serve as the youngest aviator in the United States Navy during the Second World War. Later in life, he rose to the pinnacle of American politics as a congressman from Texas, envoy to China, director of the CIA, vice president of 8 years to President Ronald Reagan, and finally president of the United States. With sound judgment, common sense, and unflappable leadership, President Bush guided our nation and the world to a peaceful and victorious conclusion of the Cold War. As president, he set the stage for the decades of prosperity that have followed, and through all that he's accomplished, through all that he has accomplished, he remained humble, following the quiet call to service that gave him a clear sense of direction. Along with his full life of service to country, we will remember President Bush for his devotion to family, especially the love of his life, Barbara. His example lives on and will continue to stir future Americans to pursue a greater cause. Our hearts ache with his loss, and we, with the American people, send our prayers to the entire Bush family as we honor the life and legacy of 41. That's the statement from President Donald Trump, just posted in the last 10 minutes on his Twitter page. Different response than what we're seeing, than what people are saying in this chat. Clearly, very interesting that he makes a direct reference to the 1,000 points of light, President Trump, in this statement, saying that he inspires public service to be, in his words, 1,000 points of light, illuminating the great hope and opportunity of America to the world. Well, leave a comment. It was interesting looking at some of your live reactions. I got to read some of them here. Leave a comment afterward in the video below the video description. I do have links in the video description to my Patreon and PayPal account. Thanks everybody that supports the channel through there. A couple of dollars on either makes a huge difference. Helps me keep talking about these issues here. Patreon.com/realityreader. I also have a PayPal link in there, and just a link to the first among the first articles pointing out this news. Obviously going to be a lot to come in the following days. A lot more reactions to this. I'll probably do another video on the same topic in some more detail once I have some time to gather some more relevant info here. Thanks, everyone.